right. Welcome, everybody. I see people filing in from the waiting room. Welcome. Hi, Janet. Hi, other friends. It's great to see you here. There's some familiar faces I haven't seen in a long time and some names connecting to audio that I know from we're in Poetry Center. So it's great to have this crossover. I am Sean Killingsworth. I'm your host and curator for the Second Sunday Poetry Readings series. And today we have an amazing lineup. I'm super pleased to introduce them to you. First up, we will have Susan Cohen, who is another local Californian. Then we have Amanda Moore, who normally is in California, but right now is in France, lucky duck. And we will finish up with Chloe Martinez to round out the whole California experience for everybody. So today is June 11th. I cannot believe we're already halfway through 2023, but here we are. So without any further ado, it looks like everybody's in and connected. If you don't already have yourself muted, please do so. We want to make sure that everything is clear for the recording and nobody's cats or dogs decide to come into the picture. And looks great. Thank you. Okay, so first up at the mic, we will have Susan Cohen. She is the author of 2 chapbooks and the full-length collections Throat Singing and A Different Wakeful Animal. Oh, and A Democracy of Fire. I think I read that sentence wrong. A former science writer, journalism professor, and contributing writer to the Washington Post magazine, Susan earned an MFA at Pacific University. Her poetry has appeared in a variety of literary journals, including 32 Poems, Catamaran, Los Angeles Review, Prairie Schooner, and many anthologies. Her recent honors include the Red Wheelbarrow Prize, judged by Mark Doty, and the Terrain.org Poetry Prize, judged by Arthur Sze. She lives in Berkeley, California. So, Susan, if you're all ready, we would love to hear your work.
Okay, great. First, thank you so much, Sean. I'm delighted to be here and especially delighted to be reading with Amanda and Chloe. It's an honor. So I thought I'd begin with a poem from my second book, which came out in 2016, A Different Wakeful Animal. And in that book were some poems that were, I'm supposed to be timing myself, but anyway, that were dedicated to parts of me that weren't exactly body parts. So to my fingerprints, to my shadow, and this one, which is to my breath. I held you underwater once, just long enough. I lost you running. A baseball socked you out of me. A car slammed my flat chest to the pavement. You deserve endearments. Essence closest to my heart, native offering, slapped into being, bellowed from my lungs, how you do carry my tune. I taste you as the ginger and the clove of me. You are where I meet the universe coming and going, beloved atoms, from all that ever breathed, Mastodon, Cleopatra, poison ivy. You let me make you my familiar, baying dog of mine, buzz of the hot hive in my breast, my sweet parakeet. I let you escape, you keep coming back. It's been a while since I've read to a screen. I was blessed that the book came out just in time for things to start opening up, which has been wonderful to read in person again. So my newest book, Democracy of Fire, I show you the cover because my daughter made this gorgeous piece of art, came out in September. And it doesn't really have a single theme. I would say about it that I envision it as starting with the more personal and gradually opening up into the broader world and ultimately the planetary world. And this is from the first section. Bright clutter. Because I read about space junk and glimpsed that image of a Tesla, mannequin at the wheel as it shot past Mars. Today, I see my nephew floating in the ocean. He travels as molecules among glittering galaxies of fish, but I see him back inside his skull, mutely mouthing underwater. His small plane plunged to the Pacific years ago, linking what's above with what's below. Currents spun him round for days, food for fish, matter swallowed by black holes. He still drifts between the worlds for me, eternal as a plastic man, and occupied with nothing. It's the ocean that stays busy. I forgive the ocean. I love to stare at how stubbornly it moves, except he keeps washing up against me, stuck between forever and never again. Bright clutter. The universe refuses to erase, and no one can retrieve. And this one begins the second section of the book as it starts to broaden. It's called The Drill. I love having a daughter who is grown. We laugh the same staccato laugh. She's walking with me in winter sun past plum trees, whose early blooms survived a recent shock of hail, the morning not as warm as it looks. She tugs up her collar, the only person I know whose eardrums ache, just like mine in wind. Now she's saying she's been told, don't unlock your classroom door, even if a child bangs terrified and begs you to let her in. She teaches her fifth graders to run, hide, defend, the country's common lesson plan, the latest in education for mortality. She's supposed to run with them, not hang back to shepherd slow ones, not hover over any child body to call out a name without a future. If they're locked down, she's been told to grab the red extinguisher, ready to squelch the fire in his eyes. Then the boys can tackle him. Her children practice their assignments. Lower blinds, stack chairs and desks and tables to build a barricade. We have calm voices, but the same angry country in our veins. Now she stops to examine a fig tree in leaf, wondering out loud why it bears buds, since the one next to it stands bare as bone. It seems random, how only some will get the chance to open. And this next one, thank you. This next one is based on a United Nations report. Report on the state of the world's children. They took me to sea in a faulty raft. I couldn't swim, but dead I could float. I came from the wrong tribe. They took me at night over mountains and let go of my hand. I was born at the wrong time. They took me to a place of tents and snow. The heat was fire, and they rationed the flames. Winter entered to sleep with us. Also men, harsher than winter. I was brave. Only my dreams cried out. I came from the wrong village. They took me to a camp with tall fences, cholera could vault. I crossed from a wrong country. Alone, I wandered a desert. I slept under a cactus for weeks until crows found me. They took me to jail. I watched a green fly who was allowed to come and go. They pronounced my wrong name. I prayed the wrong way. They took my home and gave me rubble, then told me to go home. They bombed my home and gave me rubble and told me to go home. I sat day after day and made walls from all that I had. My two arms became mother and father, holding each other and hugging my knees. So scattered through this book are a series of science poems. I was a science reporter for a while, and I still read a lot of science news, and these are each a short, very short prose poem taken from a science news story and titled with a headline from one of those stories. Science news. Dogs were domesticated once from a lost population of wolves. Old friend, chowing down your easy supper, dream twitching on your doggy bed. Better if you had bared your teeth, cornered and devoured us early, before we swallowed forests, ripped the flesh off mountains, bloodied earth entire. Better if you'd domesticated us, before we turned into this lost population of wolves. Science news. Amphibians glow. Humans just couldn't see it until now. Someone thought to shine a blue light and discovered brilliance on a tiger salamander's back. Gobs of green, marbled salamander, Cranwell's horned frog, newt with neon stripes. Their beauty dulled by limitations of the human eye. Possibly such flair serves to unnerve their predators. Silly newts, don't they know how much we cannot see, and yet we stomp everywhere? Science news. Gene tweak can extend life 500%, but you have to be a worm. If you can learn to love the fist of darkness, let it close around you. No human touch, dancing in the rain, light at the end of the tunnel, a simplicity of soil, a foamy loam. Strip down to the basic muscle of survival and let earth, with all it brings, pass through you. Life extends its linear line. Now, how long is long enough? So thank you for listening. I'm going to finish up with the title poem. The Democracy of Fire is used in this poem. And the background to it is that a few years ago, a lot of you are Californians, maybe all of you are Californians. You may remember that Pacific Gas and Electric tried these preemptive blackouts in order to prevent their equipment from starting more fires. And some of them were as long as a week. And shortly after one of those, we were in the tiny town of Bodega, which is just inland from Bodega Bay, in a dive bar restaurant that had a sign offering free food. So thanks for listening, and I can't wait to hear Amanda and Chloe read as well. Fire season with rolling blackouts at the Bodega Bar and Grill. After a week of enforced night, light breaks over the pool table, a clack of cues to crack the silence. All that was perishable is gone into 2 dumpsters out back. New on a whiteboard behind the bar, these offerings: pork belly, salmon, short ribs, butterscotch pudding with or without whipped cream. Also, everything is free for fire survivors, first responders, or anyone who needs it to be. Generosity is a poem tonight, the language of kindness to strangers, and gratitude to the volunteers whose red engines screamed from the firehouse next door. No one will argue bumper stickers, wonder who arrived with gun racks or rainbow flags, attack a slogan on someone's sweat-stained cap. Just walking through the warped doorway that never keeps the flies out is a celebration of survival. A free offer, a feast, a toast to the shared citizenship of flesh. Here's to the live and kicking, those with hungers and with thirsts, waitresses, barkeeps, cooks, paying customers or not, praying customers or not, sooty cows in 2 dry hills whose shit sustains the flies. Here's to the frantic flies, to all of us powerless, while flames choose what to burn in this raging democracy of fire.
Thank you so much, Susan. What a
Thank
great
you.
reading. What a joy. I love the worm. I don't think I would want 500% more life, even if I were a worm. Because really, what is the meaning of that?
Exactly. Especially to a worm, yeah.
Right? Right? Oh, God, it's all the same. Wonderful. So thank you so much. And next up, we have Amanda Moore. Her debut collection of poetry, Requeening, was selected for the National Poetry Series by Ocean Vuong, was featured in Oprah Magazine's Favorite Things issue, and was a finalist for the Northern California Book Award. Her poems have appeared widely in journals and anthologies, including Best New Poets, ZZYZVA, Catapult, Ploughshares, and LitHub, and her essays have appeared in Poets and Writers, Baltimore Review, and Hippocampus Magazine. Formerly the poetry editor at Women's Voices for Change and on staff at Bull City Press's Inch, Amanda is a high school teacher in San Francisco, where she lives by the beach with her husband and daughter and surfs, which I think is so impressive and cool. So, Amanda,
you've never seen it happen, Sean. It's not cool when you see it.
someday.
Well,
welcome.
Thank you all so much for being here. Susan, I love that Bodega Bar and Grill poem. It's not the first time I've heard it. And I've always tried to find that place every time I'm there. I was thinking with your poem about your grown daughter, one of the things that binds the three of us together is motherhood and the way that it visits our poems. And how when I read Chloe's work, I remember sort of younger kids. And then when I read, and it gives me all this lovely nostalgia. And when I read Susan's work, I feel reassured that it's going to get better. Mostly I write about adolescent parenting, but we're not going to do any of that tonight. I'm zooming in from France, where I have just gone to the 24 hours of Le Mans car race, not because I am a race fan, although I was very into it, but because I'm here with race fans, including my dad. And this is a weird Zoom experience because he's in the room, which is strange for Zoom, and I've never had a reading with my dad before. So I'm going to start with a poem. I was just sort of thinking as I was pulling this together, some poems of family, and this is a poem that he influenced because he was part of the storytelling for it. It's called Aunt Annie's Sand. I don't even know who Aunt Annie is, how many greats before her name, or which bronzed face is hers in tintype, which side of which family she claimed. Spinster sister of someone else long dead, leafless branch who left no one with her name behind. I only know about her sand the way I know about the Arctic or the green flash at sunset, a promise that someday you'll see it. Someday we'll park a giant green dumpster out front and toss in the toaster boxes, the crates of wire hangers, moth-nibbled linens, bags of canceled checks. And then perhaps we'll find the bottles. How many could there be? Blue, brown, green, and clear beneath their yellowed, peeling labels, sepia tilt of cursive, Salt Lake, New Jersey, Florida, all the places I imagine her gathering her skirts to kneel and collect, leaving voids she thought too small to notice. The sands her entry in the messy record my grandmother keeps, a family in objects. All the things, and none of their stories, the deeds we did to get them, what we kept and what we stole, this past we've made from pilfered dust. So we're about to embark on a little adventure, my little trio. So I have an only child, and I'm often asked about that, as if it's some anomaly and not the best we could possibly do. And I was thinking of a way to celebrate that and the little family that we make. And this is a poem called Omni Trium Perfectum, everything perfect in threes, or everything that's perfect is three. So I'm putting this out there just sort of to make sure our travels are as blissful as I hope the family in this poem is. Omni Trium Perfectum. Two alone, we two were, a duet, tipping over on our duo of shaky legs. We needed another to make us solid, triangular, like a milking stool, a trinity, the many and infinite, yes, in oddness, but also indivisible, more practical than magical, airplane row, circus rings, pieces of suit, but what ordinary magic? Limit and goal, the start of something. 1, 2, 3-legged race, a leap, hands clasped into the lake, and arc, not line, more fluid than flat, more graceful than straight. We are excess and overflow, waltz, polka, not binary or system, not symmetry, not table, square, clout, but something rare, a curiosity. We are braid, weaving a wisdom, archetype and biblical, fairy tale tries, or a coven sharing a single eye. We are danger too in nature, leaves of 3, primary, all colors can be made from us and all matter, proton, neutron, the swinging electron, molecule and elemental, 2 hydrogens rounded by her oxygen, nothing, and then water. All right. I'm going to read some new things. I was sort of thinking, I have an experiment. Sean talked about my time in the water, which some of you maybe have heard me talk about is also writing time for me. And on a really good day, I wake up earlier than my surf call, which is often before dawn. And I do a little reading, or I go back into my notebook and I take whatever I have going on in my head out into the waves with me. And I'm writing while I'm paddling, and I'm writing while I'm doing this. And I'm finding it's making my work a little more rhythmic, partly because I have to remember it as I ride my bike home to get it all down on a piece of paper. So I think I can actually do this poem from memory, and I think I can do it as I would, but I have it in front of me just in case. And it's called Despite. Mornings, I try to open like a pupil, wide in the dark, and ready to let the whole world enter me as light. I can love it all, I tell myself. The man who sleeps beside me, beneath his watchful cat. The cat, though she annoys me. Dog walkers, early joggers. The person who will hand my coffee across the counter hours from now, forgetting I don't want room for cream. And maybe even that little jerk who broke my daughter's heart. I hear her crying to the wall and want to go to her as I once did. Tears and snot on my shoulder as we rock and sway toward comfort. I move instead in stealth downstairs so she doesn't know I've heard. Even if she wanted to and begged, I wouldn't let her join my morning's dark adventures in the surf. Hard enough to keep track of my friend, and I don't mistake his heart, his life for mine, the way I do with hers. Still, I watch his shadow form against the waves as he does mine, a pact we've made to minimize the risk. Start together, yet as we cleave, separate. Like that Thursday when, pulled out by Rip, I didn't think I'd make it back to shore. Held down, held under, candled by wave and almost snuffed. I didn't know until I saw him see me, I'd be safe. And then the ocean gave me back my breath, which I drew in more deeply, more beloved than I did before. This is what I want to take home, like an unblemished sand dollar to my daughter, where she sits in her pain, as in a too hot bath. We know water doesn't hold its heat for long, but it doesn't keep that first touch from burning. I know today can't sustain this dawn light, the pink and orange of it, the blue-black roiling, but that doesn't keep me from watching. from letting all its light in. All right, I have two more new ones that I want to share. And since I see so many poets in the room, I decided I'm going to end with a prompt poem. But before that, I'm going to read a new poem, newish poem about just about the ocean. As you know, it's coming into my work more and more. And I'm in this strange time after my first collection, wondering if I'm ever going to write cohesively again, or what that next book might look like. And I'm finding a lot of ocean in my poems. So this is called Lines Toward Grace. And I think Janet might have helped me with this poem once, so it's nice to see her in the audience. Lines Toward Grace. In his letter, Greg asks if I say a prayer before I go out on the water, but each morning I am silent at the ocean's edge. I run into breakers over mucky sand where mole crabs poke at my soles before burying themselves, creatures more aware of threat and harm than I am. Terns and gulls twirl and dive, and I spot a long dorsal, a humpback, its pluming exhalation, and wait, it's fluke. I slip beneath the surface and try to hear its benthic song. If I ask Greg how to pray, he will tell me to listen to some inner voice. He does not know death is my guide. In the water, I don't hear the whale, but know it swims beneath me by the vortex of birds above. I am half pressed into sea, half open to sky. Greg goes by eagle, inside. Creature of air, he is tethered on this earth. At the end of each letter, he draws a wing like a wish. His concern for the life I cast into ocean is as lucky as swimming with the whale, or my whole existence. Nothing I deserve, but mine to take. All right, poets, this is your time. This is a little prompt. So this is a poem that I wrote from a prompt I made up. And now I can't remember his book, but Mark Wunderlich's new book, and it has the word God in it. And I can't remember what it's called, so you'll have to Google that. But he has a great poem in it called Wunderlich. And so it's God of Nothingness. Thank you, Chloe. I knew you would know that. God of Nothingness. And he has a poem in the end called Wunderlich, where he looks at the etymology of his last name. And it gets kind of fun and confusing because it's definitions, but then it also becomes this conflation with his own identity. And so this is what we can all do when we're stuck. And when I was stuck recently, I started looking at my last name, and I'm partly reading this because my dad, from whom I received this last name, is in the room. I'm actually recognizing it needs some editing. It's a long poem because when you start looking at etymology, there are so many rabbit holes and you go down all of them. So I'm going to just I'll do this little signal to let you know which ones are actual quotes, if that matters to you. This is called More, and my last name is spelled with 2 O's, which you can see on my little Zoom thing, but what a fun word to play around with. So that's part of why it's so long. So this is More, after Wunderlich by Mark Wunderlich. Myriad, mutt of misbegotten, the name mixture, an unraveled skein. There is no single source but plunder. From O Morda or O More, O excess, ode to also. The name can mean stately and noble, area of uncultivated land, heathy mountain. More, a collector of manorial rents on the Isle of Man. I get it, we're takers. More from more. An extra O peeking out, newly opened eye to indicate son of. But what folly. My name was never mine to pass along. My daughter is no more. But I didn't have to tuck my name in hers to leave it with its gifts. More for rulers of the country Laos, which may be why she's rebellious, like those who cast off the cloak of English law as she does my advice and protection. More an open land or bog, fragile and easily bruised we are, and bog dwellers, reveler in the heart's wet marsh and slug. Impatient, I taught her to sign more when she was just a baby, when our mother tongue was mooed and it moved through our bodies as scent and cry and leak. No words, but I tried to give her language. Yes, I should have listened better. The name means perpetually unsatisfied. No, it means one who wants too much. It means one not sated, maybe brusque and driven, long-haired, a bad sleeper, pigeon, a hoarder, a prowl. From Old Norse, moor, meaning ocean, meaning sea, meaning this woman who wakes before dawn to beat even the sun down to shore. It may come from the Scottish, Clan Muir. I want no clan and lead behind John Muir, but it does invite me to wild and wood. We have lost Moors to Nagers and Ipjons and Nelsons and Smiths, but we gained a Moshrush and a Reed. From Morris, Roman first name, dark-skinned. From Latin, from Old French, Moor meaning more like a Berber, a colloquial nickname for a person of dark complexion, not me. My name could be another stolen thing on which I've built my life. Our bodies are our gardens, in which our names are gardeners, meaning we reap what we sow, meaning I know violence in my name, though I can't give it back. It is my tether, my anchor, my bind, my slip, my ship in the slip, my wasteland, my scrubby fen, my picket. I will not survive it. I am the final bearer, the end of the line, last hands to hold its measure, heavier than it seems, dense as if of lead or stone, mercury, a drop of quicksilver, dangerous and darting on my palm, splintering, splintering, if I outlive my father, if I'm the last bead on the chain, I'll be the final snag of thread, no more in the tree, no more umbilical limb. Let me leave with more to do, unsatisfied and hungry. Let more be the last word on my tongue. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much. That was just wonderful. I'm so glad you got to read. I was a little worried that being in France, you wouldn't be able to make it. So I'm very, very pleased to have you here today. And I am also super pleased to have Chloe here. Chloe has never read for me before, and so I'm delighted to hear you in person. So Chloe is a poet and scholar of South Asian religions. She's the author of the collection 10,000 of Selves and the chapbook Corner Shrine. Her poems and translations have appeared in Poetry, Ploughshares, Agni, Prairie Schooner, Tri-Quarterly, and elsewhere. She lives in Southern California, quite near me, it turns out, on the traditional lands of the Tongva Gabrielino people. And you can find her at chloeavmartinez.com. And Chloe, if you are ready, I will turn the mic over to you.
Hi, thanks, Sean, so much. It's so wonderful to be here. And I'm actually gonna stand up because I am in my office and I have a new monitor that they just gave me, and it's really high and I can't lower it. I felt like I'm looking up into the camera. I'm just going to get a little bit taller to match it. It's so good to be here. And Susan and Amanda, I just loved hearing your readings. They're both beautiful. And I really love, as Amanda said, how these kind of themes of motherhood and also science of the natural world feel like they're braided together in our work so organically. So it's magical when that happens in a reading. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from my book, 10,000 Selves, and then I'm going to read a couple of new poems, and I'm going to pay attention to the time. So this book, I don't know if you can see the cover here. It's a miniature painting from medieval India, which is a horse made out of women. So the book is kind of about like multiplicity and chaos and identity, and definitely about gender. A lot of poems about motherhood. My daughters are 7 and 12 right now. They were even younger when this book was written. And a lot of these poems are kind of about trying to make my way through the chaos that I was experiencing as a mother, and also thinking about, I'm also a scholar of religion, so the poems are also kind of meditating on the ways that different religious traditions offer spiritual paths, right? Or kind of paths through trouble, paths through complexity and difficulty. So I'm gonna just read a beachy poem because Amanda's beautiful oceanic poems made me think I need to come back to a watery poem too. This is called Seal Beach. A wave slides slantways under surfers, skinny teenage hips kicked out as they fall in water that swirls like mercury, and the kids shrieking in the shallows and the tankers still as the corpses of giants along the horizon line, and the pier rough tumbling out to its conclusion. Small boys kick water at one another. Old people sit on the bench, observe. Skinny girls, selfie, text. My baby, not a baby anymore, tugs my shirt aside anyway, nurses. The surfers falling and falling, the first graders' current joke. Why do seagulls fly over the sea? Because if they flew over the bay, they'd be bagels. Bend the knees, swivel twist, fall back, fall. A teen with boy band bleached hair smokes beneath the pier. You've been at sea for some time now. You've been sick of it. But then the roar of the waves calms you too. The kids are doing handstands at the waterline, like your inverted brain sand suck around their hands as the tide runs out, the world upside down, then slowly righting itself. I guess that was not just an ocean poem, but a surfing poem. I don't surf. I am in awe of people who brave it. This poem's called The New Mother Before the End Times. It's kind of a Trump presidency era poem that was looking back at a moment before, and now I feel kind of cheerful coming back to it. I don't know. It feels like a good time to remember what it was like in that time. It's also a poem about moving and relocating, and I'm an academic, so my husband and I have been academic nomads for a long time before we moved to California. The New Mother Before the End Times, California. After the rain, how good it is to walk out and feel the sun on your shoulders. The baby in her stroller chattering in protest, then asleep. The gray-green olive trees shine wetly. The silver-gray eucalyptus trees are a scent you walk through on Mills Avenue, carrying with you the knowledge that around the corner is a tree with 100 figs just beginning to ripen. How good to be somewhere still new to you, to crunch fried sardines in the Filipino supermarket on a good day, a day when you did not say that terrible thing to your sister, when you did not stand where a great sharp palm frond fell with a crash, when you did not show up late for your own public talk. You have hung the hammock that you bought in Mexico 10 years ago, the one you've been carrying in a box from one rented apartment to the next, from state to state to state. You have taken it from the box and thrown the box away and hung the hammock up with some strange bright orange nylon tie-down straps you found at the hardware store. And it looks pretty stupid, honestly, but when you lie in it, you can still see the insanely blue sky and the edge of that fig tree. It is not yet that time when you will be afraid to let your husband, a citizen, leave the country. When irrational fears will become reasonable ones, you haven't yet begun to consider the risks and benefits of certain ordinary acts, certain statements. The baby's teeth not yet emerged from her gums, the air sweet on your two bodies. Today, you think briefly that you might be just the person to give yourself advice on how to live. Though you are underqualified at best, and at worst, you might be giving yourself some kind of carpal tunnel, holding the baby at that odd angle all the time, clutching at something else with your free hand. I'm going to just take out my AirPods because they just made that noise that says the battery's dying. Hang on while I switch microphones and let me know if it doesn't work, Sean.
You know, it's funny, I did get carpal tunnel holding my baby in awkward angles, so I very much related to that poem.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Technology, endlessly challenging to me. Okay, I'm going to read one more from this book, and then I'm going to read just a couple new ones. This poem is called 36 Text Messages, 16 Missed Calls, kind of a found poem from my phone. 50 strangers are trying to reach me. They all want to know about 7 boxes of laminate that someone, not me, is giving away on Craigslist. The flooring is somewhere in Sacramento. They leave me their contact info. The inquiries range from casual, "Hey, my name's Jose. Do you still have the boxes?" to formal, "Good evening. I am interested in the flooring." Some of them take a pleading tone. "If you still have the flooring, I'll come and get it right now, triple question mark. One person says, "I need flooring desperately." A lady named Dee writes a warm message signed, "Thank you very much." Linda writes twice. "Ed seems pretty chill. I can take those off your hands." They are in Fair Oaks, Folsom, Citrus Heights. They are ready to come and get all 7 boxes of laminate flooring tomorrow morning, tonight, right now. They've been ready since yesterday, and they don't know why they haven't yet heard back from me. They are friendly, cordial. They have learned my name from my voicemail greeting, so they say, "Hi, Chloe. Hi, Carly. Hello, Cleo. Hey, Cole." I can hear Cassandra's kids in the background, everyone so full of hope, everyone thanking me in advance. On Craigslist, Sacramento, I find my listing. I ask the person who really is offering all that flooring for free to please correct the phone number so that at least one of these 52 people so far, of whom I've become quite fond, even protective, might be able to have what they wish for, gleaming new floors. May we all catch a little free beauty sometimes. May at least one of our earnest, desperate, hopeful calls be rewarded with bounty, with gifts unearned and earned, with free laminate flooring, enough to make one room at least like new. Thank you. All right. Gonna read a couple of new poems. So, all the right ones. Over the pandemic, I think around 2021, when I stopped panicking about all of us dying, and I mean, everyone was dying, when I sort of had enough wherewithal to look around and think about where I was, I started thinking about artworks and museums, and I got really obsessed with reading articles about art restoration and repatriation of stolen artworks, which is happening at an amazing pace right now. My parents are both visual artists, so I grew up going to museums a lot, and I realized at a certain point that it had been such a long time since I'd been in a museum, we couldn't go at that time, and I started kind of imagining my way back into those spaces and thinking about what they meant to me. So here are just a couple of my museum poems. They seem to all also be about gender, what it means to look at artworks and experience these institutional spaces around art in a woman's body, I would say. At the Prado, age 18. And this is about very famous Velázquez painting, Las Meninas, 17th century painting. You've probably seen it. It has this child princess, the Infanta, at the center, and all of these courtiers around her. At the Prado, age 18. When I finally got there, let's say it didn't matter that on the way over, as I was crossing the street, a woman offered me flowers, and I didn't buy. And she hit me with them, shouting, and the light changed, and I fled. Didn't matter whether Madrid felt cold and severe and rainy, or cold and magnificent and rainy. Made no difference even that on New Year's Eve I lost track of my friends and wandered the rain-slicked streets alone, because I was uninterested in a stranger's hands on me. Call me a prude, whatever, that's how I felt that night. Let's say when I finally got there, the only thing that mattered was Velázquez peering out from behind the easel in the background, showing me light and breath and cruelty, the Infanta, a skinny little kid, strapped into her dress like the tent pole in a circus tent, and beside her, bristling, alive, 2 girls, unusually small, often called dwarves. One looked out with the fierce, elegant face of a person who sees everything, surrounded by people who don't notice much, who move destroyingly through their little world. There is still the interior life, Maria Barbola said to me in the echoing gallery, and there was white light all over her immaculate dress. Okay, this one is called Frick. It's about the Frick Museum in New York, and about the dude who founded it. So many museums, of course, are founded by wealthy exploiting industrialists, right? So there's that conundrum. I think when we're in those spaces, there's spaces that are often built on exploitation, but there are also spaces that exist because they have a public audience, right? And a private collection is not the same as a museum. There's something about collecting all that work, but then being willing to share it with the public to show how magnanimous you are, right? So I've also been thinking about that kind of complicated history of museums and capitalism, I think. And this poem is, I just heard that it was taken at, it's coming out somewhere. It's going to be in the Iowa Review, which is exciting. I haven't submitted work in a while. So, Frick. Only when you're a robber baron who busts unions, makes millions, trades all that filthy lucre for the luminous canvases of the old masters, then dies, leaving your mansion to be their museum. Only when you're that shameless can you set such a stipulation, no kids allowed. You like things the way you like them, and you're accustomed to getting your way. Even Emma Goldman's anarchist lover failed to kill you. On your own terms alone you exited. Eventually, though, maybe not the big arc, but little arcs here and there may bend like superheated steel, unwillingly towards little justices. Because you banned her, a short Jewish Puerto Rican girl, skinny with hair grown long out of an inarticulate sense of romance, but left straggly because she doesn't know yet that she's supposed to work on it. A girl having been told that your house is forbidden to the young and also that it is a cabinet of wonders will wait patiently. One day she'll turn 10, and her mother will lead her through the great doors, get her a ticket. She'll stand before Bellini's St. Francis in the desert until she finds the rabbit, the kingfisher drinking in the shadows. Her lips will move silently, reading each artist's name. Her ordinary brown eyes will roam all over your 3 Vermeers. And she'll lean one hip out and forget to breathe. Did you really think you could own beauty? She won't think of you. She'll look for a long time. And it's not the Iowa Review. That poem is coming out in the wonderful magazine ECCO that I'm such a fan of. Just realized while I was reading it. This one is the Iowa Review, and this is the last poem I'm going to read. And this one is a longer poem. I wrote a couple poems about the Ghent altarpiece, which is a 15th century enormous multi-panel altarpiece made by the Van Eyck brothers. And it was restored in 2020. And there's an amazing website where you can like zoom in on every pixel of it, you know, and really see like the cracks in the paint. And you can look at the X-ray layers, you know, of the underpainting. It's a really amazing thing. It's called Closer to Vermeer. I mean, Closer to Van Eyck. Just thought about Vermeer. So of course, there's another place that I spent a lot of time in the pandemic, like looking at every detail of this painting, which I've never seen in real life. Self-portrait as the Ghent altarpiece. If you hadn't seen much of the world, say just the Netherlands, but you dreamed of it, you'd be the painters who made me. I'm oversized. I have a dozen parts, each a revelation. I have in me books whose writing looks so clear that when I'm digitized, you'll zoom in trying to read me. You'll find you can't. My precisely rendered plants are identifiable, and botanists, seeing them, feel glad and say lily of the valley, say fig. The faithful treat me like a who's who. They say they know why some of my people look shifty or mystical, or why some wear blue. My angels have peacock feathers in their wings and parrot. I've got palm trees accurate with little orange fruits. I want it to be a real world, so under the feet of my musician angels, you'll see blue patterned tiles, and yes, you can read the letters there quite clearly. My robes are brocade. My robes have ermine edges, fox edges, jewels sewn in patterns, pearled words. The violence of my materials is in me too. Maybe not the dead fox, but the flail is there. One martyr carries the stones that killed him, another his own torn tongue. In the brocade over God's shoulder, pelicans feeding their young with their own blood. Not accurate, but that's what they thought back then. Yes, it's a metaphor. My real birds are visible in the distance, and if you thought that they seemed to be flocking like everyone else, like the knights and the hermits, the judges and the kings, the pilgrims and the women, even the women to the center, where the lamb waits, bleeding, then you'd be right. All my people are pretty much white, except a few. What a tiny world the Van Eycks knew, but every shade of feeling at least is in here. I'm inside a huge case of bulletproof glass. I've been stolen many times, and one of my wings was never recovered. You didn't notice the fake in its place before, but now you always will. Fold me closed, and there's a whole other me, Mary with the dove doing its thing, the angel with watermelon wings. Here's a little nook for washing your hands, a slim window for looking out over the city. It's a tiny slice of things, but I'm what happens when you try to fit it all in. Because they recorded light, the artist's efforts to make my Eve look evil failed. As you can see, she's a real woman, Dutch, one assumes, who showed up and stood naked before them, strong and also tired, holding that pose day after day, waiting for the men with the brushes to get it right. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you. What a tour de force that poem is. Thank you so much for reading it. I actually pulled up the Gant-Alter piece on a different screen, and I was kind of looking at it as you were reading, and it's just, I was an art history major and haven't really looked at those paintings. I was much more interested in contemporary art, but the detail and the beauty is just stunning. So thank you for bringing me back to that. Just wonderful. And I'm so grateful to Susan and to Amanda both for joining us as well. And this has been a delightful second Sunday reading, as they all are. I feel very pleased to have been able to get such amazing poets to join us today. So thanks to all three of you for coming. And I just wanted to say a little shout out to the people who have contributed to our fundraising efforts. We are doing a GoFundMe so that we can pay for the Zoom, and so we can pay for our website and for video editing. I don't know if you've noticed, but we are up on YouTube. So if you have missed any of our readings, you can catch them on YouTube. Glenn has also been putting the audio out as podcasts. So if you're driving somewhere or just, want some inner peace, you can listen privately. You don't have to watch everything, which is pretty great. So our little GoFundMe is still going strong. We're just over halfway there. And I know some of you who are in this room today have contributed. So I wanted to say thank you again. And what else? We have a very special reading coming up on June 29th. So as many of you know, this is Pride Month. So I'm hosting a queer joy reading. So a lot of the time, I think we hold space in this particular Zoom room for trauma and processing and pain. But I think it's really deeply important to hold space for joy and celebration. So on the 29th, it is going to be I'm calling it Pride and Joy. So it's a celebration of queer happiness. I hope all of you can come. Let's see, I'll be posting more about it. I wanted to kind of focus on today's reading first. So that will be coming up. So keep your eyes peeled on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and your email. And thank you once again to Chloe, Amanda, and Susan. I've been so really enjoying today. And this recording will be up on YouTube shortly. So thanks again and have a lovely, lovely afternoon or evening, depending on where you are.